You're listening to Sensitive Changemakers. This podcast is created for highly sensitive leaders and is designed to support you to embrace your strengths and gifts so you can feel more confident in your own mind and body and live a life with intention, purpose, and more importantly, joy. I'm your host, Kate Carter, a fellow HSP who has a BA Honours degree in education, is a fully trained and qualified professional coach and NLP practitioner, and has over 17 years of teaching and over 3 years of coaching experience supporting highly sensitive people. I believe that you can do anything you want to in this life, but that sometimes the path forward becomes muddy with self-doubt and fear of failure. It's my mission to help sensitive thought leaders peel away the self-doubt and stories holding them back, for them to see their own beauty and strength so they can increase self-confidence and self-trust through thought and embodiment work, and see their path clearly and move forward confidently, living their life with intention and purpose. I would love for you to come and join us. Hello, I hope you are well. As always, I hope this episode finds you happy and enjoying your week. It's been lovely here today. The weather is, I'm not going to say warm, but it's not been cold, which has been really nice. I've actually managed to put some washing on the line, which has not been the norm this year so far. So hoping that spring has finally sprung. And I hope that you, wherever you are, can enjoy some of the sunshine if that's what you have around by you. I am coming on today because I really would like to delve into the topic of mindfulness. This is, I think, such a crucial part of just life generally in today's society, but I think it's especially true for sensitive leaders. And I kind of just want to guide us through what it is and some ideas and techniques that you can use to really cultivate that inner trust and support you in reducing any anxiety or possible burnout that you might be feeling at the moment. I'm going to try and bring in some personal stories because I do love that sensitive story aspect. And as always, if you've got your own sensitive story that you would like to share, please do let us know. The link is in the show notes for you to reach out and tell us more about what you would like to share on the podcast. So the first thing I really want to go into here is, what is mindfulness? So mindfulness is the ability to really be present in the moment, using our senses and approaching the environment, both the internal environment, so that's our feelings and what's going on inside our body, and externally, so where we are physically in the world right now, with curiosity and an open mind. There's been over the years so much information out there which really does back up that mindfulness meditation can be really supportive in helping in lots and lots of different ways, from reducing anxiety and stress and even burnout to really being able to focus and to kind of have that clarity on different things as you're working. And I really want to kind of bring this to the sensitivity topic so that you can see how this applies to people who are highly sensitive. So I want to look at some of the challenges that highly sensitive people have. So first of all, sensitive leaders or sensitive people, we may get overwhelmed by demands of different things. And this isn't because we can't handle it, because we absolutely can, but it is that we're just more aware of the environment and what's going on, and all of those subtle cues that maybe other people may not necessarily pick up. We're very good at picking those up. And so we can notice different things, and we kind of take that on. If we're not aware that we're doing that, or if we don't have clear boundaries in place, it can be so easily to kind of take that on as our own. And that sometimes is where that overwhelm comes from. You've also got this kind of emotional intensity because we do feel very, very deeply. And it can make it really challenging to maintain composure in different situations. So I'm going to give an example here. I think subconsciously for a long time while I was teaching, I used to avoid going to watch the students do something. So if they were doing a presentation or if they were doing a performance on stage, I was really supportive on them doing it. I was like, yes, that's amazing. But I always pulled back from going to watch it. And it's only recently in the last few years I've realized why I do that. And it's because I cry very, very easily. really easily. And so, and for lots of different reasons, not necessarily sad reasons, they can be happy reasons as well. And I find that when I go to watch the kids perform, I just used to cry all the time. And then it would be me trying to keep my composure while everybody else was seemingly absolutely fine. Even, even kind of just hearing people give praise or really saying how somebody made a difference in their life or just really nice things, I do get overly emotional with. And so I can see how this would maybe play out in your life as well, where you really do in, quite emotional situations, you are spending most of your time trying to keep your composure rather than actually enjoying the moment, shall I say. We also do have a tendency to have like this idea of perfectionism. So we may have incredibly high standards for themselves. And again, little story here, and I would love, as always, to share for you to share yours. I remember back in 2020 when I was working with my first coach, and we were talking about perfectionism, and she sort of called me out on it. I was like, no, I'm not a perfectionist because in terms of my work, I'm quite happy to let something go out there that isn't perfect. I know that actually done and done well is better than being or waiting until something is perfect. So in terms of work, I was like, no, I don't think I'm a perfectionist. That doesn't kind of make sense. And so we brought it into myself and actually who I am. I do have incredibly high expectations of myself as a human being living this life. So not necessarily work, but what I expect from myself. So some of the examples are I do expect myself to be able to do everything I want to do at that time that I want to be able to do it. I do expect myself to eat well, to exercise, to be there for my kids, to be there for my husband, to be the perfect woman, wife, daughter, to, as much as I possibly can. And that is where my perfectionist tendencies tend to come in. It's not necessarily a work situation, it's much more of a human being situation. And so she was absolutely right. And I have to really be careful and just allow myself to be sometimes. And that's been really difficult these last few years. And I think the health side of things that I've been experiencing over the last few years has really forced me to look at that in a different light and to kind of just allow myself to be and not push so much in all areas. And that's been a really big learning curve. We've also got get my words out, sensory sensitivity. Not everybody has this, but some people get really stimulated from noise, lights, chaotic surroundings. And that can make a real difference when people are trying to make decisions because obviously it's through the lens of all of those senses that you're kind of being bombarded with. And that can make things really tough. And finally, you've got people pleasing. This is completely and utterly me. It is something I still have to work on. I call myself a recovering people pleaser, and it's so, so true. So we may struggle with setting boundaries and asserting ourselves, which can lead to difficulties in managing different ideas, or if we're working on a project, or if we're working with people or conflicts, it can have an impact there. But the flip side of that is there's so many strengths to being highly sensitive. So we are more empathic. We understand the emotions and perspectives of others, and that can really support strong relationships and effective communication. We are incredibly intuitive. And I would argue, and I've argued this before, that sometimes that part of us has got kind of pushed away or we've pushed it down because we may have been led to believe that we were weird or we didn't fit in, etc. when we were kids. So we've kind of dumbed that down. But at the heart of us, most highly sensitive people are quite intuitive and we have quite strong gut instincts. And that really does allow us to make quite insightful decisions. And we can have a look at potential challenges and how we can navigate through those. Creativity, sensitive individuals really do have a rich inner world and a knack for creative thinking. We can bring those fresh perspectives and innovative solutions to what we're working on, to our projects. Authenticity, I don't know any highly sensitive person who doesn't fit into this. So we value authenticity and genuine connection above everything else. I can't count the amount of times I've had conversations with people who are like, oh, I just don't want the small talk. I don't want to talk about the weather. I want to get into the nitty-gritty stuff. And actually, that is such a strength. It can really foster trust and loyalty among those people that you meet, whether that be people you work with, whether that be if you've got your own business, whether that be clients, etc. It can really support us there. And attention to detail. We do go deep. We are very detail orientated. We look at subtleties. I know, and I'm sure you can think of an example where I've got an idea for something. It might be an idea for a podcast. It might be an idea for a masterclass. It might be an idea for a course. For example, I'm writing one at the moment, and all of a sudden my brain goes, oh, what about this bit? Oh, but if we're going to talk about that, we need to talk about this. And if we need to talk about this, we need to talk about this. And I go into so much detail. And I'm going, whoa, hold on. Let's pull back a bit here. Not everybody needs to know absolutely everything. And so this is such a strength. I do believe it's such a strength because we're constantly looking at every angle. I do think sometimes, obviously, there's flip sides to everything. The flip side of this is sometimes we go down those rabbit holes and we kind of have to know where the balance is. But I do believe it's such a strength for us. So we're going to, now that you've got a good idea of the kind of challenges and strengths of highly sensitive people, we're going to move on to how mindfulness can help sensitive people navigate these challenges effectively while also leveraging the strengths that we've just been talking about. So the first way is emotional regulation. So mindfulness, any kind of mindfulness practice, such as deep breathing, body scans, we'll go over some of these in a minute, can help sensitive leaders regulate their emotions more effectively. By becoming more aware of your emotional responses in that present moment, you can manage stress better, anxiety, and overwhelm, and you can allow yourself to keep that composure, to maintain that composure, and really make those clear-headed decisions. And I want to just add in here as we're talking about this, one of the ways that we actually learn to regulate our emotions more effectively is learning how to sit with our emotions. And I know you've heard me say this before if you've listened to the podcast, but it's not necessarily about, oh, I'm feeling really overwhelmed. Let's just push that away. It's learning how to sit with that overwhelm. How does that feel? What's that telling us? And actually effectively sitting with it, because the more, and it sounds so counterintuitive, but it works so well, the more that you can actually learn to sit with those emotions and know that you're okay sitting with those emotions, the quicker they pass and the less likely they are to take up so much time as you move forward in the future. It really is an amazing technique. So just adding that onto there, because I think that's really important to mention there. And it really does support us in regulating our nervous system. We've also got enhanced self-awareness. So mindfulness cultivates our self-awareness because that's exactly what it's asking us to do. When we're practicing mindfulness, we are living in that present moment. We are asking ourselves to notice things that's happening around us. And one of the things I ask some of my clients to do is to actually name 5 things they can see, 5 things they can hear, 5 things they can smell, just to really allow themselves to bring them into that present moment. And on a deeper level, if we continue to practice this self-awareness, we start to recognize our own patterns, our own tendencies, and we understand how our processes, our internal processes work on a deeper level. And that can really help us to give a greater insight into what's going on, but it also can support us to give ourselves so much more compassion. And we can then see that in other people as well. So rather than reacting impulsively and getting swept away by those overwhelming kind of emotions, we can really kind of think, oh, okay, I've been here. I know now how I process this. This is what happens when I feel like this. This is what I need to do in those situations, etc. So it really does help to cultivate that, both that self-compassion, but also that insight into how we work and how we process things. And mindfulness always supports us with our empathy and connection, because to be able to be mindful, you do have to foster that empathy and compassion. And by doing this, by creating and cultivating this non-judgmental awareness of your own experiences, you can actually get a deeper understanding of your emotions and perspectives, but also respect those of others and actually see where they're coming from. So you're not going, but I think this, which I don't think a huge amount of sensitive people do, to be honest. But you are in a much better situation to go, I can see how you can feel like that. I can see how this is affecting you right now. And you have that deeper empathy and connection for people. It is also an amazing stress reductor, as we've already talked about, such as things like mindful breathing. Meditation is one of my go-tos. If you've heard me talk before, you know that. And it can really support us in reducing stress and promoting relaxation. If you are more prone to experiencing stress and overwhelm, regular mindfulness practice can really support you, like I said, in supporting you to stay grounded, to, in a safe environment, sit with those emotions so that you become more resilient in the face of challenges. So you can really storm any weather. It's such an amazing gift. And I know through my personal experience, and again, if you've heard me talk, you know this, that self-awareness piece that has come through meditation for me and being mindful has so supported me in reducing anxiety and actually permanently releasing my panic attacks completely. And is because of all these things we've been talking about so far. And like I've said previously, it can really help us with our clarity and focus because it enhances that cognitive function. And we are training our minds to focus on the present moment. That means that we are creating an environment where we don't become so distracted and we don't get so overwhelmed with that mental chatter that all of us have. And that means that we can prioritize things, we can make decisions more effectively, and we can stay in alignment with those goals and values that we have. And the last one, before I go on to some of the mindfulness techniques, is creative problem solving. So for sensitive people, mindfulness fosters a mindset of openness and curiosity. And again, this was one of the key changes. It was such a subtle change or a subtle shift that I made. But when I was in the kind of heightened part of my anxiety and panic attacks, I was in such a judgmental place. I absolutely hated myself, hated my brain, hated the way I thought. Why couldn't I get over it? Just so much self-loathing. And actually, one of the small shifts that I made was how can I look at things with more curiosity every day? And that just built, and as with everything, when you're creating a new habit, it gets, it becomes even more powerful the more you embed it, the more you would practice it. And so something that started off quite small actually really supported me in thinking about a lot of things differently. So curiosity, I think, is huge. And that can then also fuel creative thinking and problem solving. So you can leverage your mindfulness to tap into your innate creativity. You can explore innovative solutions, especially to more complex challenges. And you become inspiring not only to kind of your innermost circle, but also people outside of that innermost circle as well. And it really does set off that ripple effect. Okay, so the last thing I really want to go over here is some of the mindfulness techniques that you can actually use to help you here. So, first of all, you can look at things like grounding techniques. So, these could be things like body scans. I love a body scan. So, a body scan is where you take a moment, just a couple of deep breaths, and you tap into how your body's feeling and you do a scan from your head to your toes. And it is just a curious scan. It's not a judgmental scan. It's just a, how am I feeling? How's my head feeling? Do I need to kind of move it? How's my shoulders feeling? Am I tense in my shoulders? Can I relax them a little bit? And just going through your body and just really kind of noting any bodily sensations. And if you can, in the moment, shift them. If you can't, just noticing them and also emotions. And again, sometimes it helps to name those emotions just so that it's it's one of the techniques that we use where you're kind of distancing yourself from it so that you can observe it better. Because obviously when we're in it, you can't really see it. So by naming it, we're putting it under a magnifying glass, so to speak. We're actually looking at it and going, oh, there it is. That's how I'm feeling right now. Oh, that makes sense. So you kind of just distancing yourself a little bit just to give you that ability of awareness. So body scans are amazing. Breath awareness is another one, and we've spoken about this before. Some people, especially if you're finding yourself quite anxious, breathing techniques can actually trigger us more so than not. And if that is the case for you, I would start with something like body scans or naming the five senses, like I spoke about before, where you name what you can hear, see, feel, touch, etc., because that is a fantastic mindfulness technique that you can bring in, and it allows us to really be present in that moment. But if you are okay generally and you just want to develop your own practice, breath and awareness is a fantastic one. And making sure that it's a really deep belly breath rather than a chest breath. And if you would like more information on what this looks like, I did do a masterclass in the Facebook group. So you can go over to there, and the link's in the show notes. You can go over to the group and you can actually have a look at it. And it talks about how you really should do those deep breathing exercises to support you and reducing any tension, but also supporting you and regulating your nervous system. So breath work, anything like that is such a wonderful technique. And then one of the other things which fits into the awareness part here that I love to use is being really aware of the language that you're using and get curious about the language that you're using. So for me, I started doing this when I noticed how many times I said the word should, because should normally isn't coming from your true voice. It's normally somebody else's voice. So it might be a parent's voice, it might be a teacher's voice, it might be a boss's voice, it might be, somebody you worked with previously, could be a society kind of voice. But the word should is a lovely word to kind of tap into and go, oh, isn't that interesting that I think I should do this? What do I really think? What's underneath that should? And just taking a little bit of a deeper look at it, because should is such a lovely word to kind of notice that's happening to you. The other words are the extreme words like all, never, always, those types of words, every time, all the time, those kind of words, because again, getting really curious about those, that's saying to us that things can only be one way or the other, that there's no balance, there's no in between. It's always going to be this where it's never going to be, etc. So it's just again really a good bit of, I'm going to say detective work, where you can really look into what's going on underneath the surface there. And glimmers, if you haven't heard about glimmers, they are just looking for the little bits during a day, the tiny, tiny little glimmers in your day that make that day worthwhile. And it might be, so some of the ones for me, bringing my personal experience in so you can see what I mean here. I love just watching the tree sway. So sometimes I would go into my living room because there's a tree outside our house on a green with a cup of tea, and I would just watch the leaves move because I find it just wonderful. And that's the sensitive person in me, isn't it? I also love hearing birds. Anything to do with nature is such a glimmer for me. Another glimmer for me is if I'm driving and I think, oh, it's on a green. Am I going to make it? And I do. Or if it's on a red and then just as I'm getting to the traffic lights, it goes to green. Those are my glimmers. Those are my tiny things where I say a little thank you to the universe and just say, thank you for having my back. I really appreciated that. Those are your glimmers. So I'd be really interested to know what your glimmers are in your day. So those are some of the techniques that you can use that are quite simple to use and give you a lot of support, um a lot of kind of, what am I trying to say? They're not overly difficult. They're quite simple techniques, but they give you a lot back in return, especially if you use them on a regular basis. You've also got some more kind of stress reduction techniques. And I'm going to take the body scan and go a little bit deeper with this one. So you can use the body scan here, but it's what we call progressive muscle relaxation. So you're actually going to clench your muscles and then you're going to relax them. And again, you can start from your head going down to your toes. So you would clench up your shoulders and then relax your shoulders. You would clench your fists and then relax your fists. You would clench your thighs and then relax your thighs. You would clench your feet and then relax your feet. Obviously, a little bit slower than I've just spoken through it, but just kind of really feeling into that, because the idea is that sometimes we're not aware of when we're holding tension in our body, but also just the physical representation of actually like tensing and then relaxing can actually support us to relax even further. So actually doing that is a lovely, lovely way. Meditation and visualization, I love, and sometimes I do pure meditation. Sometimes I do a little bit of a mixture of meditation and visualization together. But using these, and you can find lots and lots of meditations on YouTube. There's lots of apps out there now, and I've got some. So if you're interested in hearing any of my meditations, please do reach out and ask. I've got some completely for free that you can listen to. I've got some good visualization ones as well. And this just enables us to, again, come back to the present moment, to really kind of feel into what's going on for us at the moment, to allow ourselves just to be in our body, and for a better word, to make friends with ourselves. Because I think so many of us are just rushing through life to go into the next thing, that we don't actually just sit with ourselves and, just check in with ourselves. How are we doing today? So it's a wonderful experience just to do that. And the last couple of things I really do want to talk about are the importance of self-care. So a lot of these different things would fit under the umbrella of self-care. But actually, I want to go a little bit deeper, because I think self-care, yes, we've gone through quite a few techniques, like I said, that could fit under that. But you've also got things like having a nice bath, having your nails done, eating good food, drinking a lot of water, all of the things that you hear a lot of people talking about. But for sensitive people, the biggest self-care practice that I know, and I think it's tough, I'm not going to lie, I think it's tough, is setting healthy boundaries. And I think that is one of the biggest self-care practices that we can do as sensitive people, because it's the one that we struggle with generally the most. We want to make sure that everybody's happy. We're picking up on those nuances and those little bits that aren't being said, but you can tell from the energy in the room that that's what's going on. And it's in our nature to try and make sure that everybody's okay. And actually moving into more of a neutral perspective and looking at how we can set some healthy boundaries around things is such a supportive way to look after ourselves. And one of the ways that I did this, I have found this incredibly difficult, is to actually look at my priorities and go from there. So what are my priorities? And the other thing that so once I got my priorities, the next thing I looked at was, these are my priorities. I want to be able to say yes to these priorities. If something comes up and I feel drawn to say yes to it, does it mean that I'm going to have to say no to one of my priorities of life? If that is the case, can I say no to that? Can I say no to whatever's being asked of me so I can say yes to my priorities? And to begin with, it was really small, and I did it in a very safe environment. I did it with my husband, who I felt very safe with my family, who I feel really safe with. I practice it out there before I became better at doing it in a wider circle. And there are still times when I find myself saying yes, when I think, maybe I shouldn't have said yes. But, we're all human, we're all learning. And I think being highly sensitive, it's one of those things. The smaller the step that you can take with this, the better, because the more you'll stick with it and see the benefits of doing it over time. So I think I could do a whole podcast just on self-care and setting healthy boundaries, but I hope that's enough to get you started, so you can have a think about how you maybe could implement some of your healthy boundaries. That is done for me today. If you have any stories, sensitive stories that you would like to share, like I've said before, please do fill in the application form that's in the show notes. I would love to speak to you more. I'm sending you so much love. I hope you have an awesome week, and I'll be back next week. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. If you have any takeaways or any questions, please do reach out to me either through Instagram, LinkedIn or Facebook at Kate Carter Coaching, or you can email me at kate@katecarter.co.uk. I always love to hear your feedback and the things that you have taken from the podcast. If you know of any other highly sensitive people, then please do share this so that I can reach more and support more highly sensitive people to embrace their strengths and gifts. As a thank you, I will pick a winner every month for a free 50-minute coaching session with me. Thank you so much.